Hi, it's Dr. Minkoff, LifeWorks Wellness Center. I want to talk to you about adrenal fatigue. Now, this diagnosis is pretty much unacceptable in normal medicine, but it's actually a real thing. So we have these glands. They're called adrenal. Renal is kidney. Adrenal is on top of the kidney or next to the kidney. So your kidneys are in your back above the last rib. And they're about probably a little bit smaller than your fist. And you have one on either side. And on your kidneys process water. On top of the kidneys are little glands. They're probably the size of walnuts. And those glands have two major functions. They make different types of hormones. So in the adrenal gland, there's an outer core and an inner core. And the outer core is called the cortex or the adrenal cortex. And it makes three major hormones. One of them has to do with electrolyte balance, salt balance, and that's called aldosterone. Has to do with blood pressure as well. The other one is called hydrocortisone, cortisol. Cortisol is anti-inflammatory. It's triggered when there's a big stress reaction, like you're running for your life, or you got scared to death, cortisol, or you get a big inflammation, you get trauma, or you get an infection. Cortisol will be triggered to prop up your blood pressure, reduce allergy, get your system so that it can use proteins to make energy with. The inner part of the adrenal gland makes adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine. It's the fight or flight hormones. So it makes the heart beat fast, makes you breathe faster, makes you run, gets blood to your muscles. Now, when we talk about adrenal fatigue, usually the part we're talking about is that the adrenal cortex has been called upon so many times because of a chronic stress situation or situations. Now, this can be mental, emotional stress, compounded by physical stress, overwork, overexercise, compounded by the stress that comes from infections and toxins. And the adrenal gland basically gets so tired that it can't produce enough of these hormones, especially hydrocortisone, to keep the body up and balanced when it's in a stress situation. And so these people look pale, they look kind of thin, their blood pressures are low, they're super sensitive to everything. They tend to be allergic to everything. They have autoimmune things where their immune system is attacking them. And they feel exhausted. And one of my best questions to sort of tease this out with people is when you first wake up in the morning, is it full vitality, ready to take on the day? Or on the other side, dead? And the adrenal fatigue people are in the dead. Like if it's a 1 to 10, 10's up here, 1's down here, they're in the 1 to 1.2 to 1.5, they're like dead. And usually that means if we measure their adrenal hormones, like we can measure blood levels or saliva levels of hydrocortisone, another hormone called DHEA, and we can measure aldosterone, that those hormone levels, especially the hydrocortisone, are going to be really low. Then when that person runs into a situation, the stress of, I've got to get up in the morning and get out of bed and walk to the basin and go to the bathroom, that stress is more than they can actually even muster enough hydrocortisone to meet. And so they just can't do it. They're exhausted. So when this is, and there's varying degrees of that. So some people are okay a little bit of the day and they're not the rest of the day. And some people it's the whole day. So these are things that we commonly measure. These hormones we measure in people. We can see, hey, look, normally the graph for hydrocortisone is it's real high in the morning. It's a little bit lower at night, in the noon. It's a little bit lower in the afternoon, and it's low at night. And then during the night, it starts to come back up, and then when you wake up in the morning, you get a burst of cortisol in the morning. That's what wakes you up. And then you go through the day, and that's how it's supposed to be. But if you do the graph on the person of a cortisol every 6 hours during the day, you see in the morning, it's really low. At noon, it's really low. In the afternoon, it's really low. At night, it's really low, like they're exhausted. And that person needs to have some hormone replacement. They need to have hydrocortisone. And so we give them back hydrocortisone. The catch-22 in this is that the brain sends the adrenal gland instructions. In the brain is the sensor for how much cortisone is in the blood. And when the brain gets the stress of, I've got to get up, I've got to run a race, I've got to give a presentation in front of someone, and the brain's like, we need some cortisol. So it sends a messenger hormone from the brain to the adrenal and says, make some cortisol. Now, when the guy can't make cortisone, that brain hormone is still going strong. It's like, I need cortisone. Now you get some cortisone up here or we're going to all die. And the adrenal gland is saying, I can't. I'm done. Okay? So we got to shut that off. So we give him some cortisone. So we give him some in the morning. Brain's like, oh, good. He doesn't have to send that messenger down there. Give some at noon. Okay, he doesn't have to send it again. Okay, give it in the afternoon. Doesn't have to send it again. Now the brain's like, I'm happy. You're doing good. And now the adrenal gland's not getting that message. And the message is basically a stick. It's a whip. And now the adrenal gland can start to heal. And then we get the sleep in, and we get the nutrition in, and we get the infections under control. And we get the guy doing a little bit of walking, and we give him some sunshine. And over time, 6 months, a year, the adrenal gland heals. Then they don't need the hydrocortisone. Now the hydrocortisone is weaned off. Now the brain and the adrenal gland are back in sync. And as long as the lifestyle is kept together, then the body will operate again. So usually in most people, this is healable. And there are sensitivities to everything, like can't eat anything. And, my skin is itchy all the time. And I've got rashes and I've got all this stuff. It's just a lack of hydrocortisone because there's nothing turning down inflammation. This is a major hormone which reduces inflammation. And it just isn't enough there to control it. So this is a real thing. This is like a miracle. Like sometimes I can prescribe something for someone and in a week they'll come back and you'll say, my life, you saved my life, I am back. I can actually function. And all I did was give them a little bit of hydrocortisone 3 times during the day. And now their system can operate. Okay, so it's a real thing. It's a significant thing that people can really get help with. It's rarely recognized by regular medicine. So if your doctor probably hasn't checked your cortisol level and probably hasn't offered you therapy for it, but it's a fixable thing. Okay, so that's adrenal fatigue. It's hydrocortisone. It underlies many cases of chronic fatigue, of fibromyalgia, of brain fog, of low blood pressure, of low energy. And little bit of bioidentical, this isn't a drug, it's actually the same hormone that the body makes, given back to the person, can just really turn their life around. Okay? So that's adrenal fatigue. Hope this helps.